And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Kanell. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe. Smash that like and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 tailgate, where they are celebrating the, and I quote, deepest backfield in the Big Ten. Brett kicking down the doors, getting things started early. How about them Illini with the emergence of Khalil Valentine and the big backs, Caden Fagan, Josh McCray, and the local kid, Aiden Lafferty? Lafferty. Does Illinois have the deepest backfield in the Big Ten, Tom?
No.
Okay.
What? I would still go with Ohio State, just with the top two that they have.
Also Penn State?
Yeah, maybe Penn State. Maybe. I don't know. They could barely beat Bowling Green, whereas Illinois was taking care of Kansas.
I mean, you just look at it right there. Lots to get to here on a Monday. We are going to check in. The market is open. A couple of pieces of advice from Tradin Danny. Highlight some of the best individual performances that we saw through the weekend in our competition among each other in the Cover 3 Fantasy League. And it is a Monday, so we, of course, have, upon further review, taking a look at the late night action and anything else we did not get to coming out of the week that was. Congratulations, Danny. First week of the season without a FSU lock. Come on now. We told you that Knowles had bye week on lock.
Yeah, sorry about your Jayhawks, Danny. I know you were a big fan of them last week.
Oh, yeah.
I was this close to texting that picture to Lance Leipold before the game. And then I didn't. I was like, probably a better thing I didn't. I don't want to be like known as the jinx. But I do think somebody pointed it out. Like it could be, and they said they had Tom's BC one. And they had mine, and they said, this could be the new trend, like the upside down Dallas was started. We should start a line like hand-drawn college logos. Somebody said it could be fire. So we should just start a line. Let's go.
Finally, those art classes I took in elementary school are paying off.
One thing we like to do every single Monday, for about 8 to 9 minutes or so, is to take a look at the new college football rankings in a segment. Shout out to Jeff Banks, who we like to call Poll Assassin. Now, I told y'all, yes, Danny?
That is Mrs. Pole Assassin, by the way.
Wow.
They are officially married now, so.
They are, and she changed the Instagram handle. She did like a farewell post because all things Pole Assassin get alerted to my attention every single time. So when she gave an Instagram post to say that she's going over to her new married name, Pole Assassin Banks, get all the monograms, PAB on the towels in there. So I told you on Saturday night, and I don't want to celebrate me being right because that's not all that interesting, but I do want to hear from you all. Do you agree with Texas jumping Ohio State for number 2 in the AP Top 25 poll?
Chip, we never challenge you on this stuff because I think you were the only one who's like, all right, if they get a couple of these 6th place votes converted up to 1st place votes or 2nd place votes, like they're going to make, like, you got it on lock. Anybody who questions Chip Patterson with the poll stuff is dumb. I don't really, do I agree with it? Texas has a much more impressive win than Ohio State does.
Right.
Would I take Texas to beat Ohio State right now? No, I would not. That's kind of my stance on it. Like, would I confidently?
It's a good stance. It's a week 2 ranking,
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We should reward teams and guys who have played well. So,
and we should punish those that don't. Like, that's what I like. I have zero problem whatsoever with Texas being Ohio State. I had Ohio State lower than, I think, Penn State even. And Penn State fans or Ohio State fans were furious. They were like, well, I do a resume-based poll. In 4 or 5 weeks in the season when you've all played some Power 5 teams and you can go out and look as good as you have against these nobodies, then you'll jump right back to the top, which is where I wish it would everyone think the way I do. Clearly, people have their own mindsets and they want to look right at the end of the season. So maybe they do keep Ohio State up there because they predicted them to win there, but fluctuate each week based on what information you have. So I prefer the resume-based ranking. So by that, I think Texas is number 2, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah, like I don't mind Texas being at 2. I'm with Bud. I would still have Ohio State 2 the way I do things. But the one problem that I don't know why they got 4 first place votes. if you're comparing, like if you're doing it power rating wise, you're not putting Texas ahead of Georgia. If you're doing it resume wise, is Texas's win over Michigan, a team that didn't look all that good, more impressive than Georgia absolutely decimating Clemson, and then seeing what Clemson did to Appalachian State this weekend. It's like, I still think Georgia has the better win. I still think Georgia has the better power rating. So I don't get the 4 voters who put the Longhorns number 1.
That's fair. I think that there are voters who still had, like, there are still people who have a very, very high opinion of Michigan. And I think that that's where.
Didn't they see my announcement? We're writing them off. They're done.
I know. No, it was no more Michigan or no Michigan.
I wrote off Michigan.
Off Michigan and then underlined.
Mm-hmm. That really drove the point home, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's where you look at the opponent, reigning champion and all. You look at the setting, going into their house and doing it. I was not surprised they caught a couple stray ones, but I think Georgia's still first place. And a great point about what Clemson did. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Tigers very much, but that was quite a statement win for Clemson as well to be able to do that. Let's see. There was Kyle says, is it just me or has the AP poll been more reactionary this year to bad results even when ranked teams win?
That's probably just you.
I just think it's always reactionary in the
early.
First month of the season. You just
Which I think it should be.
I think you should react. Yeah.
I think you should react to what we just saw, especially when we've only seen 2 weeks. And then I think as the season goes on, the dust should settle somewhat and you start to kind of come up with a more accurate assessment of where all these teams should fall.
Yeah. I do not mind big swings in terms of the rankings. And like, the CBS Sports 134 went live today, every single team in the country. I mean, we had teams, and it wasn't just the likes of 61 spot for Northern Illinois, but I mean, the spots like 25 to 50. I mean, we tell you on this podcast all the time, the difference between the 26th best team and the 40th best team is very small. And that oftentimes, especially with just a few results, you're going to have big swings. So Syracuse jumps up 40 spots. So South Carolina jumps up 19 spots. Auburn falls 18 spots. You have these spots, these jumps, because we only have but a few results. And between 25 and 50, they're just going to fly up and down all throughout those rankings. Yes,
I mean, I wish they would be more reactionary in some other areas, right? Like, why in the world are Missouri, Ole Miss, and especially Alabama ranked above Tennessee?
Thank you.
Tennessee
totally agree.
Tennessee's looked a lot better than Alabama, like way better. They have had similar results to Ole Miss, except the competition level they have played is a lot better. And they have better results and better competition than Missouri. Like, if you're doing this based off that, Tennessee is pretty clearly team 4 right now, to me.
That's
Alabama, Ole Miss, and Mizzou.
And why is Missouri and Ole Miss and Alabama ahead of Penn State?
Thank you.
I know Penn State struggled with Bowling Green a little bit, but Bowling Green was my pick to win the MAC. I think they have some real athletes this year and a pretty good G5 team. Bama's in a one-score game with a not a very good USF team pretty late into the stretch, and they're giving up like wide open guys all the time. Like, I saw some stuff like, they did a nice job limiting explosives. I'm like, tell me you box score scouted without watching that ball game. USF's got guys running wide open, and Barry and Brown just can't hit them. There's some weird stuff going on there. Why is Clemson behind Notre Dame? Clemson
lost to Georgia, and Notre Dame lost to freaking Northern Illinois at home. And they put it. No, I'm with you.
That game closed 10,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That game closed 10. They lost by 28. Notre Dame closed 28.5 and lost on the field at home.
At home, yeah.
Do you know why?
If we're going to be that reactionary, why is Notre Dame still ranked at all?
Do you know why, though?
Because A&M.
No, it's that too. But I think it's even more so because of the preseason rankings. Because of where you thought they were, where you had them at the beginning of the season. 13 feels like a really big drop, right? And they were, what were they in the preseason? 7, 8? So you kind of had them up there. Last week, you bumped them up even a little bit more. And then you just don't want to throw everything out. Like, that's what I really try to do when I do the top 12 Sunday mornings and people get all fired up. And I'm like, no, I try to go off resumes. I throw out everything I thought based on the first 2 weeks. And I come back and say, all right, where are they now? Like, what did we just see? What did we learn? And I think a lot of AP voters, that's why Ole Miss, Alabama, and Missouri are theirs, because they were preseason, they were top 10, top 15. And so like, well, they didn't lose. So you don't want to drop them. You don't want to penalize them for not losing. So they just stay where they are. By the way, which is how the SEC does the preseason rankings, favor them incredibly because people don't throw them out. And then when they get to the regular season, they start playing each other. It's like, oh, there's two top 10. They lost to a top 10 team. And then so you're not willing to ding them as much. So they don't fall that much. It's all a mess.
Say lazy.
Notre Dame is still
Lazy.
in the top
Lazy
15
is
on
right.
12 ballots.
Who has looked better, USC or Bama?
USC.
USC.
Yeah, it's not even close.
But
Yeah.
like I said on
Do you not
Saturday night,
think USC
Alabama
was-
wasn't going to drop because half the voters are going to see is they saw, oh, Alabama won by 26.
USC would drop 40 on that Bama secondary.
They might.
Agreed.
I think it might be worse than what LSU's running out there. There's guys running wide open a lot.
In terms of the product or in terms of the quality, it seems to me that the Ole Miss Missouri case falls maybe a little bit more in line with Ohio State, because I don't know what Ole Miss or Missouri have done that's bad. Criticizing Alabama is fair. There's the competition has not been good, so it's not that like Ole Miss and Missouri have given you a ton besides gaudy statistics on the Ole Miss side to really latch onto. But I don't know. I don't know if there's any reason to panic about Ole Miss or Missouri being somewhat close to what you thought of in the preseason.
Oklahoma should be dinged the same amount
Yes.
Oregon's being dinged.
Mm-hmm.
They look way worse than the 15th team in the country right now.
I agree.
Well, so wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the top 7 are SEC.
Like, who would you take neutral site right now? Clemson or Oklahoma?
Clemson.
Clemson easily.
Yes.
And would lay not a huge margin, but some margin.
Yes. Oklahoma's got problems.
Would you take Clemson or Missouri?
I don't know,
Clemson.
because I feel like I've seen Missouri actually play yet.
That's fair.
Exactly. I
Would you take Clemson or Bama today?
think it'd be a good game.
Taking Alabama.
I agree. I think I would probably take Bama, but not sure.
It'd be
So-
somewhere between a one-score game or a huge blowout. I don't know. Clemson Alabama games. You don't know.
So, but I mean, that's essentially what you're talking about is the power ranking style. Like
Well,
you go
but,
through and
like,
say, who's the better
Oregon's
team?
being punished for looking like crap. Oklahoma looks really bad, and they're not punished.
Right.
Great. Fair criticism.
And by the way, Idaho just beat Wyoming, as you guys mentioned on the reaction pod. I was just listening to on the way to work. And Ashton Genty might be one of the best backs in the country. That's what our guy said the other day, Damian Harris. Like he was like, I think he's the best back in the country. Like he might be. And like
Might
they did
be.
get torched and they didn't look good offensively. Boise State might be the best group of 5 team out there.
Even
I don't
with
think there's any
Amon.
fight about it at this point.
Want to hit this? The Hopster
Maybe
says,
Amon was just great. Malachi Nelson stunk.
is there any chance Genty actually goes to New York? If he does that mean Boise has a chance to make a run in the playoff?
Yeah.
First
Does it mean
start,
they have a
yes.
chance to make a run in the playoff? No. But if
But
Boise
Genty-
gets to the playoff and Genty is keep doing what he's doing and he's the focal point of that team, then hell yeah, he's got a very good chance to get to New York. I don't think he's got much of a chance to win.
he's a bad man.
Wait, Boise's unranked?
Yeah. They are
What the hell is
27th
that?
behind. They're behind Illinois.
So they went and played on the road, like punch for
Had them on
punch
the ropes.
with the top 10 team, and they're unranked.
Well, they
Yeah,
lost.
this is silly.
Hey,
Uh,
listen. We're not going to spend every poll assassin picking apart 23 to 20. Like those
Yeah,
things
that's
will
fair.
sort themselves out. Okay.
I will say I'm happy that Northern Illinois got ranked.
Just for like
That's
to be
cool
able
to
to have
reward them.
a historical marker of a historical win, best win in program history. Programs like that, they get to say like, oh, we haven't been ranked in the top 25 since blank. What
Mhm.
happened in that year? Oh, wow. Jordan Lynch was a Heisman finalist. Oh, wow. We beat Notre Dame as a 29-point underdog. Like those.
Maybe that's
those-
why Notre
those
Dame
mark-
didn't fall too far.
I'm
Well,
shocked.
they,
South
they lost to a
Carolina.
ranked Northern Illinois.
Genty said, did he say he wanted 2,000 yards this year or 2,500? I think he said 2,000.
Yeah.
If he gets 2,000, I think he can get to New York. But for him to actually like have a chance to win it, I think he has to break the record.
I think his touchdown total is going to be gaudy too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what
I
I mean.
hope he
That's what he
doesn't
has to
get
do. It
that.
has to be gaudy.
Yeah.
He might be
I
able to
think
do it.
Yeah. I think he can do it 100%.
The Mountain West is bad enough to where I do think we have some real shots there to Boise can coast in a lot of these Mountain West games. Is what I'm saying.
but he's,
I think they need to save the Genty bullets, and I hope that he is not. I hope they don't run him like crazy in some of these lesser games.
We'll see. I mean, he
just for his NFL future.
He can get like 4 touchdowns in some of these, lesser games, especially with the way that he's especially with the way that he
Where
gets
is
out and running.
Mike,
Oh,
where
have
you
we
at?
heard from Michael in the chat? I don't know. Like I've got his on IG. I've got him muted, but I see him sometimes. Let me take a look.
Mike's not here today. It's
a
weird.
rough day for Michael.
We'll do
Also,
we'll
it was
do
like
a
Richard
check.
Johnson when he wasn't in the chat last week after Clemson lost. It's crazy how so many of our tailgaters don't show up the week after their team loses.
Hey man,
Seasonal work, like week to week. So some weeks are busy, some weeks are not. Right?
not everybody has the gumption to just show up, win or lose. And that's
Did Ryan show up? Like Ryan's a Notre Dame fan.
Oh, I haven't seen Ryan yet this morning either. He's usually telling us how stupid we are.
Yeah. Coming up on the other side. Ooh, you hear that? Do you hear that? Oh, it's the return of the drive to 325. Plus, day trading Danny. Next.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sports into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. And look, we thought before the season that might be kind of interesting to just keep this thing going. But then we saw what happened after Cade McNamara's, what was it, his 8th pass attempt? Like everything was looking great for about 8 pass attempts. And then the offense just turtled up. You end up blowing a 13-point lead. First time you've done that in, I think, a decade. 2013 or 2014 is the last time that Iowa has blown a halftime lead of 13 points or more. And the offense wears a lot of that. So, Bud, let's bring it back. The drive to 325. Come on. Show us what we have. We've run the calculations on the Bud Bop. Beep, beep, boop, boop, pop, pop, pop. All right. These are, why don't you explain it to those who might be seeing it for the first time?
Yeah. So if you guys weren't with us last year, and we really appreciate it. I mean, hey, the only college ball pod in the top 15 in the podcast charts on the NFL opening Sunday, like that was kind of cool to see. I was like, all right, we really appreciate y'all and the audience that we do have. So last year, Iowa's AD basically made a deal where Kirk Ferentz would have to fire his son Brian technically not, because he wasn't a supervisor because he had to work around some nepotism rules. So anyway, Brian would be not renewed if the offense could not average 25 points per game or 325 for the season, or whatever it is, counting the bowl game. Anyway, so we would run projections, rest of season projections, and it was a bit of a bit because they would need to average 100 points in the final game to get there. So it was actually pretty funny, and we deadpanned it like crazy until we actually had more important stuff to talk about in November. But we are bringing this back because I still think this is a pretty reasonable and noble goal. And I will tell you guys that the Hawkeyes, they're on pace. They needed to get to week 1. They are on pace. All right. They only missed it by a single point in this week. I needed them to score 20. They scored 19. That's actually kind of there. Troy, 35. Like if this offense is real, if I'm wrong about Cade McNamara, they should be able to get 35 pretty easily on Troy. Needing to score a solid 20 there on Minnesota, 6 on Ohio State. I feel like that's just
big ask.
I know 6 is a big ask, but I feel like they can do it. Need 30ish there against Washington. 30 at Michigan seems a little tough.
Yeah, that's the one that's standing out to me. I mean, 30 at Michigan. We just saw Texas get 31. Is Iowa going to get 30?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to see that happening. That's actually supposed to be Michigan State, not Michigan. So that makes a little more sense.
Okay.
That can happen. Come on, guys.
That can happen. With Aiden Childs might give you a 6 or 7,
So 30 Washington, 30 Michigan State, very reasonable. Michigan, not reasonable.
I think we should leave it as Michigan.
It is funnier. Northwestern 24, 17 Wisconsin, 31 UCLA, 30 at Maryland, and 24 against Nebraska.
I don't know.
I would say the 24 Nebraska seems a little bit tough. Maybe 6 against Ohio State does seem tough, but that's just, I didn't want to give them a 0.
Right.
You can't go under a 0.
All right, Tim Lester, this is your challenge now.
They're going to do it.
That's what
I
Tom,
think he'll do it.
yeah. Tom
You know
said,
what was hilarious?
what?
Did you guys follow Chris Hassel during this game? I mean,
Not
he was
during the
Yeah.
game.
devastated, live tweeting.
I was so mad. He was tweeting through it,
He
watching
was
them
so
blow it in
mad.
the
You
second
still
half.
believe in McNamara?
Well, but, yeah, but I
is he
think
finally convinced this kid can't play.
the thing that was funny, I thought there was a lot of irony in this, is he's been pounding the table for more offense, right? Like most Iowa fans are. And he started to get it in the first half, and then they still come out throwing it, except they have Cade McNamara throwing back across his body, getting picked off. And Hassel is saying, run the ball, which I guarantee you is something Kirk Ferentz is probably in the back of his mind thinking, yeah, you guys miss me? You guys miss me game, taking control of this game and just trying to get us out of Dodge without throwing the football. I thought it was funny. The only thing I would complain about that graphic that we just threw up there is it is a like NASCAR car. It feels like it should be an 18-wheeler. Like if Kirk Ferentz was driving the 18-wheeler, it feel like that's more of the style.
You're like a harvester.
NASCAR, I don't know.
Yeah, a tractor with the
Yeah,
harvest
yes.
attachment on the back.
Tractor, even slower.
A tractor could work. I like
Last
it.
year they were driving a radio flyer.
And look, I've seen cars. Tractors can go fast when you're tipping over the cow cars. It can be really scary out there.
You ever get stuck behind a tractor on the highway? It sucks.
It does.
I didn't know that you had those 2-lane highways. Is that out in the burbs?
Yeah, we have to. I mean, Chip, where I live, I drive 20 minutes west, and I'm just in the middle of farms.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. We love to make sure that you are up to date on all the latest goings on in the market, which is why we have to check in coming out of the weekend with Tradin Danny.
All right. If you guys been following the market, it had its worst week of the year last week, which pretty much trends with my picks that have kind of come off the rails a little bit. But that will not hold us back from still getting after on the market. Just to get us started, give you guys my portfolio, because I don't want to go through this and be like, why didn't you buy so-and-so? Why didn't you buy so-and-so? So we'll assume my portfolio consists of some of the top quarterbacks out there. Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Nico. Those are like top 3 right now that I have that I'm holding. Like I've had them, assume I've had them the whole time. I am holding on to, even though it is really close to hitting the sell button, Dylan Gabriel, Holden. Because I'm just like, I got analysts researching, checking the numbers, looking at the fundamentals, making sure they're there. I am holding on to Cade Klubnik. Now, there's a little bit of a bright side. You guys pointed out a lot of it was easier throws, but you do wonder what confidence can do for a 5 TD performance in a young quarterback. We'll see if that could be something. Although I do remember DJ, you having a couple 5 touchdown performances too, and it never really turned the corner for him. So just something to keep an eye on. The last one I'm holding on to, Grayson McCall. So I'm holding on to that. We'll see if he can get better as the system goes. And you guys referenced Tennessee might be that wagon. Bud also pointed out, I think it could be fine for the ACC. And if they kind of get things going, I think he could settle into this offense. But as we pointed out in the preview, I was like, did you guys notice Grayson McCall's got a little bit of a noodle arm since he joined the ACC? It's always been there. I just think he's got to be more comfortable in the system that he's playing in. So I'm going to hold on to it. I'm not selling it just yet. So that's kind of my portfolio of guys that I'm working with right now. Any issue? Anybody missing?
Where are you at on Bo Nix and his 3.3 yards per attempt?
I mean, I'm trying not to dunk on everybody just yet. Like, I just want to be like, all right, let's wait. Like Will Levis, I feel really good. See, I may not be able to predict who's going to be the superstar, but I feel pretty confident in the guys that I don't think are going to be superstars. Like Bo Nix and Will Levis were probably at the top of the list where I was pounding the table. So yes, I would buy the Oregon Bo Nix stock. I would sell the Broncos and Auburn version of Bo Nix. Similar color scheme too. Maybe there's something to that. All right. You guys want buys or sells first?
Let's go with the buys.
All right. I'm buying. I don't know if you guys hit on this. I'm sure you probably did. I didn't get the last another hour, 41 minute reaction pod. Solid from you guys. It wasn't even, I need to go 2.0 next time. You guys are all going to sound like chipmunks by the time I'm done getting to this so I can listen to the whole thing. I'm buying DJ Lagway is not only the quarterback of the future, but the quarterback of the present for the Gators. I thought he showed enough where I think Billy Napier, clearly he's on the hot seat, but if he went back to Graham Mertz, I think he should be fired. There was some highlight throws. I thought you saw more than enough to say, all right, this is our guy. the arm talent did jump. You can see why he was, one of the top players in the entire country coming through Gainesville. So I'm buying that. I did not watch the whole game, but the throws that I did see were enough for me to go, all right, that's it. Like, it's done. Like, thanks for coming, Graham Mertz, but you're going to be the role of mentor now to the young quarterback.
All right, so for Lagway, like you mentioned, we've got to take competition into consideration from like the quarterback side. Like, is it just like the way he carries himself? Because I also saw some, scouts be able to come back with the, they thought he was, great with the rollout, command of the offense, being able to go through his reads. It's not just the physical tools as well. You liked the way that he, orchestrated things out there.
Manage the game. And how many teams have we talked about that are really good that have struggled against lower tier competition? Like, I mean, so that just the fact that you're doing what you're supposed to do, I think is a really good sign for DJ Lagway. You know what else I'm buying? And somebody in here already referenced it, said, if you like the volatility, which I do, I'm a trader. I love the volatility. I'm buying Aiden Childs. Now, I know he had a couple picks. There were some questionable throws, but they were down 7 in the fourth quarter, and he had to step up, made maybe one of the best throws of the weekend to tie up the game. I'm going to trust what Jonathan Smith told me, said he loves him. We have to remember, speaking of volatility, he's only 18 years old. Like, I think this kid could be that guy. I don't know if it's this year, but you can see the foundational parts of a guy who could be special, where all of a sudden Jonathan Smith, after an entire year kind of learning, eliminating some of those mistakes, that this Michigan State team could be right back to where they want to be next year. So I'm buying early on Aiden Childs. You guys with me?
Yeah, no, I love Aiden. He's the most entertaining quarterback in the country right now.
Okay.
I am. Bud.
I'm buying Bud's mute button, and I'm never selling.
I think I'm with all those. I mean, to me, the Lagway thing will depend on who Florida hires, I think. Assuming that Napier's out. So, like, does Lagway like the fit of the new guy? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, right? I think you'll have big-time offers from a lot of different schools in the offseason. Samford did cover that game, and the line was 38.5. Samford is legitimately bad. And so, yeah, I'm still with you because I think Lagway is crazy talented.
And that ain't his fault.
Did you have Cade as a buy?
No, I had him as a hold.
Okay, yeah. I think,
right? I'm coming into the season feeling like second year, and it wasn't great against Georgia. Confidence is back. A lot of easy throws, as you guys pointed out. But I'm gonna hold on to him. I'm not willing to sell him yet, because I know you guys were talking about benching him right after, like at some point.
No, we said Clemson's backups are terrible. So like you have to.
They don't have anywhere to go. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Right.
I watched that game. That was interesting. He had like 170 yards on this fake bubble screen and go wide open stuff, which was pretty nice. But like, is that repeatable in some of their better games? Probably not to that extent. Man, App's defense was horrendous. Like they had improved a lot in the final 7 games last year when they switched to that 4-2-5, but that did not hold in this game at all. But I was happy that Cade was like, he wasn't broken. He went out there, the guys were wide open, but at least he hit them.
What do you make of the fact that Wesco only played 13 snaps against Georgia, and then very clearly they decide, like, we are going to scheme this stuff up for this absolute animal and just unleash him?
I wanted to bet Wesco anytime touchdowns, but all these books were on top of the prop.
Heading into the game?
Yeah. They were on it. They're like he needs to play.
So why was he not a bigger factor against Georgia?
Is it a trust thing? I don't know.
Yeah. He's a freshman. You got other guys.
Would he have really made a difference?
No.
I don't think so.
He would have won that game for him.
Of the many books that I read, Wall Street Wizards, Trade Like a Pro. I mean, I could go down the list. Warren Buffett's got a great book as well. One of the lessons that I learned is you don't want to make emotional trades, like knee-jerk reactions. But this one might be early. But I'm buying USC as the second best team in the Big Ten. They do get Penn State at home. And I'm not selling my Oregon stock just yet, but I don't know how you can feel great about it from what we've seen from them. USC's got as much chance as anybody to be in this conversation. The bet I would make, I don't think I'd bet them 8 plus 850 to win the Big Ten, just because I do think Ohio State could be that juggernaut. Plus 165 to make the college football playoff. They don't even have to be the second best. They could be the third best and potentially the fourth best. But I like them.
Of the many books I've read, Cat in the Hat, Horton Hears a Who,
The Lorax.
Green eggs and ham. I don't think that's a terrible take. I don't think it's off. I don't agree with it, but I can see the way things are going if that ends up, because like we'll get to more upon further review, but there are holes in like everybody but Ohio State. If you look at the top 4 teams that we thought were going to be in the Big Ten, all of them have shown some holes in the first 2 weeks of the season already that kind of make you raise an eyebrow. Whereas USC has just looked pretty damn good.
It might be too early, but you know what? A lot of people were like, what's this internet thing? And they didn't buy Google. So it might be early. All right, on to 2 sells. I got 2 sells and then I'm done. I am selling Riley Leonard as the quarterback to take Notre Dame to the playoffs. Now, this is more about something I heard on this podcast where Tom Fornelli, resident hater of the 12-team playoff, said this is why it sucks, because you shouldn't be able to lose that game and still make the playoffs. So this is a combination of, I think that loss did kick them out of the playoffs. Like, especially since they don't play in a conference. They don't have that auto bid. I think if they're in a conversation with a lot of 2-loss teams, then you're putting those 2-loss teams in over them. So I do think, and this isn't about like Riley Leonard clearly has a long way to go as a passer, which we pointed out here a bunch. Like he only had 3 touchdown passes last year through the air. He has to develop there. It's going to take time. I think we all probably jumped there, but we were all tentative on it. But it's more about the quarterback this year. Like, and I don't see them having one of those runs where all of a sudden they just dominate everybody, even against their schedule, which is light. I don't think they're going to do that. So I think, and Notre Dame is out. I think that was the loss that kept them out of the playoffs.
Makes sense. Who's buying at this point?
Notre Dame.
We're kind of selling the bottom here.
There's always somebody.
No. They're still in the top 25. I don't think they're top 25.
The AP
team.
voters are.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The AP voters are still in on them.
Stock price ain't bottomed out yet. No, I mean,
TV networks are still very much in on Notre Dame being a playoff team.
Yeah.
By
the way,
one more on Notre Dame?
Hold on, just like to tie those last 2, like the buy and the sell. Why is the narrative like, all right, well, if Notre Dame runs the table, as if they don't play in at USC the last week of the season? I mean, Trojans are touchdown favorite in that game. Yeah. 10 points.
They also play
now.
They also play Louisville.
When we get there, it'll be close to double digits.
What if Texas A&M finishes 7-5?
Right.
I mean, it's like their
What
best.
if Florida State finishes 7-5?
What if Northern Illinois goes 5-7? I mean, it's like, lots of things can happen.
What if Texas A&M wins the SEC? I mean,
losing to Northern Illinois at home suggests to me that Notre Dame's probably not going to run the table.
Right. I think that's it. Like sometimes you say that a team has been knocked out of the playoff because of the impact of the loss on a resume. And sometimes, especially early in the season, I think my opinion is more of like, no, I just don't think that team is good enough to do what you're saying, which is run the table. They have not been consistent enough to think that they are going to be able to withstand the rest of the college football season without taking on another loss. So I
hope Riley Leonard proves me wrong. He's a great kid. I just think he's got a long way to go as a passer. Last sell. I am selling Shedeur Sanders as a top 5 NFL draft pick. I think this year could be a really long year, but even more importantly, NFL teams will dissect everything, right? They overanalyze things. You can have an incredible year, but if you act a fool off the field, they do not like that. You can be different. Look at Caleb Williams. Like, he was different, paints his nails, does all this stuff, didn't prevent him, but he was a pretty good teammate. I never heard him throw his teammates under the bus, never heard him complain. Some of the stuff that's happening, I think, is going to damage his draft stock. For him to go out and talk. Now, did you guys hear the thing when he said it was a rookie mistake and it felt like on the pick 6, was he talking about himself or was he talking about the receiver he was throwing to? Because it felt to me like he was throwing the receiver under the bus, saying there might have been a mistake on the route somehow, and then he was throwing him under the bus. But then even afterwards, when he was talking about Dylan Raiola, and there was some comparison. And I'm
so many times did he get touched, which is basically throwing his offensive line.
You got to eat it. You have to eat it at that point. Say, you know what? He played great. He outplayed me tonight. You don't throw your own offensive lineman under the bus. You don't throw your running game. You don't throw your play calling under the bus. All of it, is hurting his draft stock. And I hate that because I do think he's talented enough to be potentially a top 5 pick. But I think when they start dissecting it, and if he's borderline, if it's like, well, I don't know if he has a top tier arm strength, they will talk themselves out of it.
Leaving the sideline with 2 minutes left in the game doesn't help his case either.
I mean,
that could have easily been solved, I think, if Deion would have said they were going to rush the field, we wanted him off. And it's still controversial, but the fact that they didn't.
Why don't they want the rest of the team?
I would have just lied. I would have just said, oh, hey, like he took that big time shot. Like I just wanted to make sure he got checked out and he was okay. The game was over. Just wanted to, like, it's a long flight back. It's hard to travel from Lincoln. We just wanted to, get him checked out as soon as we can. Nebraska played extremely well, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
I mean,
Mark, how about one last thing on Shedeur? So you say not a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Do you think he's still a top 3 quarterback?
Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are clearly 1-2. It'll be interesting to see if anybody else plays them way into that conversation. And I think it largely depends now on how he plays this season. And if he gets roughed up, I mean, last year he got roughed up.
The whole season?
What's that?
Like, what odds would you need to take that he plays the whole season?
Oh, you mean like if they run out of bowl?
He's shutting it down. Like if they're 2-6,
business decision.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Mark,
I do think Deion will coach the whole season, though.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too. He can't shut it down.
I mean, don't you need resign and just hand the thing over to Warren Sapp? I mean, is that the way that this ends? Colorado closing out the year, playing all those teams.
Shout out the Blue Chicken. He said, what if Travis Hunter? He said he could shut it down. Mike, what if they all shut it down because it's all a business decision? Because I do think they'd probably go together, if they were shutting down for the year. And then you talk about a locker room that would be challenging to keep those guys fighting. Boy, they need a W fast.
Things are turning
this weekend.
Yeah.
You think Colorado State gets them this weekend?
No, I think Colorado's going to get Colorado State.
Yeah, Colorado State looks bad.
Right.
That's going to be an exercise. That's going to be an exercise. The Demons game for the Buffs. They're going to
BFN.
Colorado State is probably worse than North Dakota State.
So, from DenverSports.com, and this was something that that our friend and colleague Richard Johnson was pointing out in the CBS Sports workroom, is that you're starting to see that local beat, which had been very friendly and very promotional. The tide is starting to turn. Maybe it started with, going after the Denver Post, and now they're all starting to come back. But I did not know this because I have not been to a game in person. But according to DenverSports.com, Deion Sanders told the marching band they could not play the fight song after Shedeur scores a touchdown so that the loudspeaker can play a recording of his son's song, Perfect Timing.
You know who else played Shedeur's song "Perfect Timing"? Nebraska in the locker room.
I love Colorado, though, man. Like,
they are good for our sport.
Like, there are so many Colorado fans who aren't actually fans of Colorado. They're just fans of celebrity type coverage, which Deion gets. It helps the numbers, and their commitment to the bit and to the reality show is amazing. They talk trash when they're down 50 points. It's amazing. Like, I love it. Like, cool. Like, be who you are. And if you just want to talk trash all the time, great. I still believe they can win the Big 12. I still think they can make college ball playoff, just like Deion said.
I don't.
I think he's got his finger on the pulse of this team, man, and clearly knows what he's looking at.
I do not. I think no. Yeah, listen, you might say K-State slipped up a little bit. We might be worried about Cam Rising. We might be looking at Oklahoma State a little sideways. Maybe that ceiling is dropping. I ain't there yet. All right. Coming up on the other side, an update from some of the best individual performances from the weekend and how it ended up playing an impact on our Cover 3 Fantasy League, and upon further review, where's the concern level with the Oregon Ducks, and much more from the notebook from week 2. Next.
Football action continues Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances?
As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North.
It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield.
Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Bud. Who was helping out Bo Nix Hall of Fame this weekend? Who were some of the individual performances that brought things home for you?
Let's do this thing. We got the graphic?
Maybe.
Do we have the graphic?
I don't think so.
Oh, we don't have the graphic. All right, cool. Well, all right. So wanted to point out some of like the high profile guys. I thought we had a graphic made for this. I submitted it yesterday. So, all right, that sucks. Let's see here. So for my team, who I took another L, unfortunately, to Bo Nix Hall of Fame, which is Danny. Danny had Dylan Gabriel, who absolutely slayed 243, 2 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. As well, he had Cam Ward, who is one of the front runners for the Heisman. He killed it. RJ Harvey got on track for UCF, 126 yards and 4 touchdowns. Kyle Monangai, again, Danny's back's just crushing everybody. 208 against Akron and 3 rushing touchdowns. Nick Singleton for Penn State. Even though it was a close game, 119 and a rushing touchdown and 14 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. And then he had a couple of receivers. Just Kyron Lacey went off. Evan Stewart went off. And Bryant Wesco also went off. So nice. And Tyler Warren from Penn State. So, yeah, he beat me 254 to 240 despite me having Garrett Green and Carson Beck go nuts. My running backs just – we're going to have another team meeting. Like Jaden Blue gets hurt for Texas. Jordan James doesn't do a damn thing for Oregon. Phil Maffa, like Clemson scores 500 million points, and he only gets 17 fantasy points out of that. So DJ Giddens for me, pretty nice. 114 and a touchdown, 4 receptions there. Dylan Sampson, 30 fantasy points, 132 on the ground, 2 touchdowns and 37 through the air for Tennessee. And my receivers also kind of just nobody scored 30. Jaquez Moore for Duke, nice game. Brennan Presley for Oklahoma State, come back. So he narrowly edged me out. Do you need me to do the other one?
The other matchup?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got the other matchup pulled up. I mean, Tom,
yeah.
I mean, Tom, you want to talk about what went wrong? Not being able to. Oh, yeah, Danny, for sure.
I just want to say something quickly because it jogged my memory of something I wanted to say. We were talking about Monangai, my back, had a big day. Did you see where his former quarterback is playing now and actually got into the game?
Gavin Wimsatt? Yeah, we did talk about Gavin Wimsatt.
Oh, you did? I didn't. Dang it, I didn't get the whole way through the reaction pod.
That job's gonna open, right?
Yeah, we were just saying how bad has it gotten when that was the option? When you're like, oh gosh, this guy can't.
Your
play.
quarterback has 3 completions and he has more sacks than completions. It's not great, and they don't have anywhere to turn. Like we saw him at Rutgers last year. Sorry. Back to the game.
Tom?
Hey, congratulations on having the 3rd highest score this week, Chip. Of the 4 teams.
Listen, I couldn't have done it without Garrett Nussmeier. You know, sometimes when you're trying to put together the kind of season that's going to maybe get you considered for, an All-American team, an All-SEC team, maybe even slip yourself into the Heisman conversation, they say that there's no pictures on a scorecard in golf, and sometimes at the end of the year, no one goes back to look that 6 of your touchdowns were against Nichols. But when you've got 302 yards and 6 passing touchdowns, that's a 50 burger in the fantasy world. Also got 38 from Haynes King, a lot of that coming on the ground. He really was that was Georgia Tech's best offense late, was getting Haynes King out there going. Wide receivers didn't do a lot for me. I've got Trey Harris there, but that just ended up being a little light work, 130 yards. Theo Weiss comes in with 149. Rondé Gadsden, again, that Syracuse-Georgia Tech game, Gadsden with 2 touchdown receptions and 93 yards. But I tell you, the thing that I'm really excited about is that Cam Scatterbo just continues to just he is just piling up all of the confidence. He is piling up all of the yards. 262 yards rushing, 35 yards receiving. That'd be 30 points on the in the fantasy world. So, Tom,
we're on to Bo Nix Hall of Fame. Thomas Castellanos had the nice 36.5 points for me. Nico had 31.05. What killed me is Garrett Nussmeier, who scored roughly 25% of Chip's points this week. And then the fact that like Arizona, my Arizona stack had a terrible week against Northern Arizona. So Noah Fafita finished with only 11.45 points, which doesn't hurt me because my other quarterbacks played well. But what did hurt me was Teteroa McMillan, 2 catches for 11 yards. Kind of sunk me. I mean, Jeremiah Smith continues to be the steal of the draft. He had 20.4 points for me. Trey Wilson had a good week. Xavier Restrepo had a good week. Jake Brenningstool leading the way at tight end with 25.5 points thanks to his 7 catches and 100 yards. But again, my wide receiver core just really pooped the pants over the weekend, and Chip had one player do really well. So good for you, Chip. I'm very proud of you. That should be a
Thank
great
you. I'm
strategy going forward.
glad you're very proud of me. All right. So on Mondays, we do like to go under the hood. We like to tell you some of the things we did not get a chance to get to on Saturday. Call it a pun for the review. There were terrible calls. Do we want to go ahead and jump in?
After further review.
After further review.
After further review.
So where is the level of concern with the Oregon Ducks? Because that game was going on as it was finishing. We did a little like straw poll in the final minute. We all thought Boise State was going to win because they were doing a good job of being physical up front. But Oregon is able to get out of there with a 37-34 win. What do we think about the Ducks?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put the concern level at 4.9 because there's part of me. I mean, I think Boise State is just a good team. And we were talking about earlier in the show, there's a very good chance Boise State could be the G5 rep in the college football playoff. So maybe at the end of the season, this game doesn't look nearly as hairy as like maybe last week's game against Idaho did. The concern for me is the lack of explosive plays from the Oregon offense. Like, the offensive line is still not great. They did not look great against Boise. They didn't look great at Idaho, and that is a concern. But what the difference was this week, like I felt like from down to down, Oregon's offense was fine, but they were like hitting a bunch of singles. They were not connecting on like a 3-run homer. They were leaving a lot of runners on base. How many more baseball cliches can I fit into this one? But like they didn't have a run longer than 12 yards. They only had 3 pass completions over 15. And the other aspect of this that, I mean, I made the joke about it on Twitter, but like everything is to the left. Like the entire offense passing game is designed to go to the left side of the field because that's where Dylan Gabriel is most comfortable throwing the football. And defenses understand that. And while you still have to cover the entire field, if you've got a pretty good idea of which side of the field the ball's going to, you can kind of tailor your coverage to that side and keep things in front of you and then hope Dylan Gabriel and those guys can beat you in the red zone. And with the way their offensive line is playing right now, there's a decent chance they won't be able to beat you in the red zone. So there are concerns. I still think that it's one of those things where if the offensive line improves week over week, this will still be a pretty good team come the end of the year. But based on what I have seen from these teams in the Big Ten so far, like the Ohio State having to go to Eugene, to me, loomed as a big game on the schedule where I was giving Oregon the edge for all the obvious reasons. I am far more confident based on what I've seen from the Buckeyes that Ohio State can go into Eugene and beat the Ducks than I was a couple weeks ago.
I did rewatch this. Well, not rewatch. I just watched because I don't have Peacock, so I watched it for the first time. I have some concerns for the Ohio State game. I have no concerns for Oregon State, UCLA, or Michigan State because I just don't think think those teams are any good. So my assessment that they basically had a 6-week preseason is unchanged. But I have greater concerns based on what they have shown in this sort of preseason, level of thing. Like they are screwing around some in these games. I was not super high on Dylan Gabriel as a player. Again, I think if he actually was that good, he would have gone to the NFL. But he is supposed to be a really good college player. And I don't think that he is executing the offense very well right now. The completion percentage is high, but when I watched it, I did see open guys that he's not pulling the trigger on. So maybe there's a comfort level thing there. I don't think Oregon's having a problem scheming guys open quite as much. He just needs to pull the trigger. I think the offensive line will get better. And Boise has a pretty special running back in Ginty who hit some explosive runs. I think the question with Oregon becomes, like, they should be a dog right now to Ohio State, and probably are. I haven't looked at the look-ahead market. Like, does Illinois become a game of concern at all? It's in Eugene, right? Probably not. Does the game at Michigan become a greater concern? Because that was always sort of the number 2 game on this schedule. I don't know. Like, can Michigan's offense get its act together? Like Maryland sandwiched between the Michigan game and the Wisconsin game. Like, does that become a game that you can actually lose? Probably not, but maybe they'll play you tough. What about the one at Wisconsin? Again, like, not real high on Wisconsin this year. Like, is that concerning? Washington's certainly not concerning for me at this point. So I still think they have a pretty high floor, but this team wanted to go to the Final Four, I think.
Yeah, like high floor record-wise isn't the same as when we're judging you in a vacuum against the very best teams in the country.
Exactly right, Chip. And when we defined in the preseason what would define success for Oregon, I think we all said they need to make the Final Four.
That's why the panic meter for me is a little bit higher, probably 6.7, because of the expectations coming in. All this, remember why Oklahoma was willing to part ways with him and go to Jackson Arnold. They wanted bigger play capability. I think they were frustrated for exactly what we're talking about, the lack of explosive plays within that offense. And I think it was that top tier arm strength. I thought he would plug in right where Bo Nix left off as far as the accuracy. I thought he would challenge his 78% completion percentage. But I also thought he'd be able to give you the same explosive play rate, but he's not as good a runner. So, you're not going to get those types of runs and big plays from the QB. And Bo Nix probably has a better arm overall.
Definitely.
So I'm starting to get a little bit nervous for the top tier.
I'm not saying Gabriel's McCall, but he will get drafted much lower than his numbers suggest he should, because it's just like, you see him in person, he's not big at all. The arm does not have a lot of pop. But I think he'll improve because he'll know where to go with the ball. Like, there's a comfort factor here he doesn't have yet.
Did you watch it this morning or last night?
This morning.
Okay, so do you remember in the fourth quarter, they're driving late, and he sailed a seam route? It was the most hilarious thing ever. With the Dylan Gabriel overthrow is just like a double rainbow. You're just like, oh, wow, but that's the accuracy in general. Nothing was crisp. And Dan Lanning said after the game, he's like, we got to be smarter. We got to be smarter. The procedural penalties, the fact that some of that might come from the fact in the middle of this game, they switched up their offensive line. They moved a couple pieces in and out. And I did think that the run game had a little bit more success once they made those changes. Yep. Just comparing.
They had down success, but they were not getting anything explosive in the run game. They haven't at any point this season yet. It's a concern.
To your point, there's open guys and he's either not pulling the trigger or he's missing some of the throws. I can see how very quickly this could all click into place, but everything seems just a little bit off. It's like a zipper that's stuck and it just won't all go together, because when they have the special teams plays or when they do have these moments where you just remember, oh my gosh, the athleticism that is on this roster is next level. But when they can't set it up with any kind of consistency, it's tough to really judge them as one of the very best teams in the country.
Which could be, it's just taking time to get everybody up to speed. Dylan Gabriel's only been there 9 months. He's learning new players, learning new scheme, learning new concepts. That could be all it is. And then they have this preseason to get it right before October 10th. And then we'll really find out. Or even if they lose that game, they have even more time to figure it out before the playoffs start.
Yep. Tom, you said you got a lot from the Big Ten in your pun for the review. What's in the notebook?
Well, first, I will just say that I watched the Ohio State game. I'm here to declare that Ohio State is quite good.
No, yeah, Bud said that. I hadn't. You were like, yeah, we watched the first 4 drives, and you're like, oh, okay, all right.
They are the every year there's the team where they're not playing anybody, but they're just absolutely crisp and just absolutely destroying the teams that they are playing. That's Ohio State right now. They just look really good, which is a shock to everybody. I am sure nobody saw that coming from the Buckeyes. The other one was going back and looking at Penn State. I didn't watch the whole game, but just going through it. They were kind of the opposite of Oregon, in which that offense was still hitting explosive plays, but they weren't hitting any singles. So it was a whole lot of solo home runs and stuff like that, which I think kind of helped keep Bowling Green. And the bigger concern, and we talked about this on Saturday, so there's not too much new here, but defensively, they looked a little ordinary against Bowling Green, or at least not as good as you would expect that defense to look.
KJ Wallace went out in the first half there. He was the defensive player of the week for the Big Ten against West Virginia. So I don't think they have great depth in the secondary. They're going to have to stay healthy there. I don't know what his status is for this week. I will say on Ohio State, I ran through the first half on the just watching the snaps. I did not watch their defense. I watched that live. They killed Western. They did show a little bit of the quarterback run stuff. And in week 1, I didn't see any of that. So they didn't actually have Howard keep it much, but they did do some of like the play pass stuff off of it. And I think they're starting to show a little bit of that, which you knew it's there. Like Oregon's not a dummy. They know who you hired at OC. Like you don't want to show everything. I'm sure you want to make Oregon prep for some stuff and then have some counters off of it. But that offense does look different when you have to account for the QB run. And Howard is a pretty good runner at the college level.
What else?
Can I yell at Tony Sanchez for a bit?
Yeah.
New Mexico State absolutely let Liberty off the hook on Saturday night. New Mexico State was winning that game most of the night, and they were doing it in the second half by being aggressive. In the third quarter, New Mexico State's up 17-9. New Mexico State's facing a 4th and 1 at its own 36. They went for it, and they got it. They kept the drive going. They kept the Liberty offense off the field. In the fourth quarter, still up 17-9. New Mexico State's facing a 4th and 1 at its own 27. They go for it because they know if they're going to pull off this upset, they aren't going to do it with Liberty having the football. And they got it. Now, a few plays later, there's a fumble. Liberty picks it up, scoop and score, goes wrong. But they went for it. They were aggressive. Fast forward a few minutes. It's now a 24-22 lead. 3 minutes left in the game. New Mexico State's facing a 4th and 3 at the Liberty 46. So now they're in plus territory, holding on to a 2-point lead. And they punt. After going for it on 4th down twice in their own territory in the second half, Tony Sanchez butthole gets super tight, and he decides, I am going to give the football back to Liberty. And guess what Liberty did?
Went right down
90 yards in 7 plays and 114 seconds to score a touchdown and win the game 30-24. You had them, you let them off the ropes, and you blew it. It was a terrible decision to punt. You should have just gone for it. They only needed a field goal. It's not like you were trying to, they're like, oh, they have to score the touchdown, which they got. You should have gone for it and won the damn game.
That's only the second worst punting decision of the weekend by a coach in the Southwestern United States, though. And like what the Raiders coach did is like a fireable offense.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out. Yeah.
Did you see? I think it was Matt Davidow on Twitter. He posted like their like live win expectancy, and it went in half.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, I think was it Felica? He had all the punts. And it was the 3rd worst punt decision out of the last 2,000 punts in the NFL. It's like seriously, like you had to be taking some serious stuff to make that punt. Like that's, Antonio Pierce, horrible coach. If you're New Mexico State, you're not going bowling, man. Like you got to try to find a way to beat a Liberty team that's pretty beat up. And
also from the late night slate, I am buying all of the overreaction on the Danton Lynn effect. I just, we kind of talked about it earlier, but that's Utah State is not good, but they got nothing. And
dude,
it's like
Anthony Lucas is playing his ass off. Like that's one that you buy because of the flashes, because you knew what the skills that he had and like the potential he had as a high school recruit. And he didn't do anything at A&M and then transferred. And I don't think did anything last year. Now he's coming on. Like that's a problem guy. Like he's an NFL dude and he's playing like it. That's a material change you got to make to USC's defense because they have a real NFL guy there. Like it's not like Bear Alexander's dominating anybody this year for whatever reason. Lucas is kicking people's ass.
Yeah. So I very much enjoy that. All right, anything else from the weekend that we haven't gotten a chance to get to?
I got one more. Fran Brown, he obviously learned a lot from Kirby Smart. Like you learn a lot coaching from one of the greats, but he got a master's degree in motivational tactics because you would have thought Brent Key was sleeping with his wife. Like, it was that bad. Like, and all Brent Key said was totally cliche coach speak. We want to be physical. It all comes down to what happens between 12 and 4. And somehow Fran Brown turned that into personal attacks on their manhood and their integrity and every other character assassination attempt that you could possibly come up with. And you know what? It worked. Because I even saw one Kyle McCord talking smack on the sideline, calling out Georgia Tech. I mean, we did see Georgia. They thought everyone picked them to be 7-5 when most people were picking them to be 12-0. So he took a page out of that book, and it is working so far.
Did you hear who got cited? Not just Kirby Smart, but who else he said when he was
Will
giving
Muschamp.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was like, well, of course I take it personal. All right. I coached with Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp. Of course I take it personal. I was like, yes.
They're the two most personal takingest coaches out there. I got one more that's not really upon further review, but it is amusing. This is from Northern Illinois coach Thomas Hammock, who was on the Dan Patrick show this morning. He said that before the game, he told his team, he said, Rocket Ismail isn't running out of that tunnel. And then he said nobody on the team had any idea who he was talking about, so I had to switch it up to Joe Montana. Who's older than Rocket Ismail?
He's
How
awesome.
many
He's
players on the IU do you think know who Joe Montana is?
I would honestly, I was shocked that they didn't know who Rocket Ismail was, because I feel like 80% of Northern Illinois' roster consists of suburban Chicago kids who probably grew up rooting for Notre Dame.
I will tell you, like, it's shocking how many kids have no idea about players who played like 10 years ago. Like Jamar Chase didn't know who Peter Warwick was. And they're not like that far apart in age.
Kids these days, they don't study their history.
Yeah, come on now. I think South Carolina's defensive front is real. I don't know how much it's you gotta score points to win games, but
I don't think it's bad by any stretch. I think it's good. I don't know if it's as good as it looked on Saturday.
It's top third in the SEC.
I think that it is a group that can the phrase that was rattling around in my mind this morning was it can level the playing field a little bit. And when you're South Carolina, you're limited and you need as much playing field leveling as possible. And I think that a defensive line that gets after it with a player like Dylan Stewart, who legitimately requires double teams like all the time, that you can at least open things up and try to be able to keep yourself in the game. So I think that is a sustainable part of South Carolina's profile moving forward. And as I said on the reaction show, I was not just trolling. I did not watch like a lick of that game in the 3:30 window. My eyes were elsewhere, so I had to circle back on that one for the Gamecocks.
I mean, that was the only reason to like the South Carolina team, I think.
It was the defensive line.
Yeah, like if you bought any idea they were going to be better on offense after losing Spencer Rattler when you were watching what Rattler was doing in the preseason, I was like, I can't see that. And the receivers clearly got worse. Raheem Sanders, like Rocket doesn't have his boosters. He just looks like, if you watch him, there's not that same juice. It's not back. And I actually kind of like Sellers long-term, but can't really be a buyer on Sellers right now. The D-line was the reason to like this team. And it's proven to be good. We have a great matchup this weekend, by the way, not like game-wise, but personnel wise. So you're going to get Dylan Stewart and you're going to get him against Emory Jones, the right tackle for LSU, who's a pretty good player. That'll be his first test of like a guy who's not terrible. Like the ODU kid can't play, and the Kentucky right tackle, I believe, had a pass blocking grade of 5. It
was good
on PFF, which is not great. I mean, yeah, like I've seen a 0 before, but 5 is not high.
5.0 is like an A+ GPA though. So
that's true. All right. So we are going to be back on CBS Sports Network on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Come watch us live on television. We'll, of course, get you all that content from the show where we're going to be setting the stage for the week ahead in the Big Ten. We'll have that on the podcast feed and on YouTube after we are live on the mothership. Then we will be back here on YouTube on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time for Big Game Breakdown. So come and hang out And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Danny Kanell. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.